Three, two, one. You done messing with your phone?
Have you improved your clap?
That wasn't a very good one. By the way, okay. I'm really glad we have our friend from Toronto. Thank you for joining us, Mohit. It's really nice to have you. Before we get started, how was the clap? Was it a bad clap or was it an okay clap? Because me and Laith have this fight every time.
Yes, and I feel like it's almost shtick now, right? About how you guys are going to approach the clap. To be honest with you, I avoid the clap at all possibilities, and this is one that I'm familiar with or can endorse. But I will tell you, I do know that we're recording now, so that's the important part.
Well, that's it. That's it.
Exactly. Right. That's the cue.
So I appreciate you knocking down my shtick and making me feel really bad before we get started.
I kind of feel sick right now.
That's the first lesson, guys. Always insult the host.
Break the ice.
It's good. It's only uphill for me.
Amazing.
The rest of the way. So thank you for joining us all the way from Toronto. Tell us, man, how's things going now with Toronto with everything that's happening? How's life there?
Yeah, so Toronto currently, as we record, second lockdown, cases on the rise. Unfortunate, but the reality, not as bad as the rest of the world. But of course, we've turned into this hyper-local situation where everything that matters to us is really about what's happening locally and how we can all function locally. And, that's weird for people like myself who are in digital, who always look at the world as being the audience, but it's also represented a fantastic time for people to get familiar with what's happening locally. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you the danger in that. The danger is there's so much news that's happening in the rest of the world that if we don't really attach ourselves to all elements, we're just going to make sure that our corner and our block and our village and our city is okay. And we can't function like that. Not in Canada.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was one of the people that I kind of always had a feeling like when it first started, I think a lot of people were quite optimistic or unrealistically optimistic in saying it's going to last a couple of months. We always knew that it was going to take a while until it comes in, until they find a vaccine, until it gets distributed. I still think we're about a year away. And I don't know how you guys are, like, how do you feel the long-term coping is going to happen? So you guys went into lockdown. It's brutal, right? I'm sure it is.
It's a 30-day lockdown, right? It's only 30 days.
It's 30 days, but it's the second one. So as you can imagine, we've got, you guys have been the 4 seasons, right? We have 4 seasons and we need all 4 of them to function as Canadians. You can't skip a season. You take away fall from somebody, they go crazy in winter. You take away spring from somebody, it's too hot in the summer. Yeah. So, and Canadians have that ability to attract people from around the world. And we have, I don't remember the gist of the question you just asked, but I'll just tell you that we're in a situation where it's not going to be something where we think that an automatic resolution of what's happening somewhere around the world is going to completely mean that we're in the clear. And I think that that's doing 2 things really right now. It's causing us to pay attention to what the real function of both our government locally and nationally is and those functions. And the second thing is we forget just how much of the economy revolves around us physically going and experiencing and being a part of things. My brother and I were just speaking about the fact that this is the first year that we won't go to sort of a mutually respectable NFL, NBA type game. Shout out to Raptors, by the way, world champs.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
I got a replica ring, and when we meet real life, I'm gonna bring it for you guys.
Oh, amazing!
You're gonna need to wear it.
Amazing. We represent the Raptors out here hard,
dude. So fun fact: the year I moved to Toronto is the year that the Raptors were inducted into the NBA. Yeah. And I was 16, 17. Coming from Dubai, I'm like, basketball was my life. Eat, sleep, breathe basketball. And thinking like, okay, where's this lineup for this NBA I want to join? This is how delusional I was. And when the Raptors came to Toronto, I was over the moon. I went to all their blacktop tournaments on the streets. every event that I was there, I participated in. It was amazing. And it was the perfect, I think that's the time Toronto started shining as a city globally.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, let's be honest, our hockey team didn't do it, right? So it wasn't like we had no presence in football/soccer.
But we were known for baseball. The Blue Jays were good, but it's not.
We had Joe Carter doing his thing.
Yeah, so. Cal Ripkins. No,
Toronto will always like Toronto and Canada in general will always be like the cousin to the world, right? It's always everyone's had a good experience, everyone's had a good meal. You know, they've gone and seen a couple of things. Not many people want to live with their cousins. It's the same sort of thing, right? It's just but fortunately, I'll tell you guys, and this is why this conversation is awesome too, is we have a lot of open-minded people that are doing some crazy things in international scenes, from entertainment to technology to all, various different verticals. And that's one of the reasons why we'll always kind of be on the radar, whether we have the number one singer or the country guy or the Shopify or technology wise, Toronto's always in the news in some way. And that's weird for a city. If you think about it, that's really this small.
Yeah, no, it is. It's absolutely true. I was just thinking, like, with all we were talking about the COVID and the lockdown and stuff, and like different people were using it in different ways. And I know, just to kind of come to what you've been doing, right? So you've come out with a book. You have a second book coming out after, I think, in January, if I'm not mistaken, from what I've heard.
Actually, next week.
Oh, wow.
Audible.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Amazing.
So, so I'm assuming you used your time in a productive way while, like I said, some others might have just sat down, such as myself, did very little.
Started a podcast.
We started a podcast. Fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, so tell us about that cycle.
You guys are actually, sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry. Finish your...
No, please go ahead. Go ahead.
No, but you guys represent the exact type of things I'm trying to motivate, which is people who have put themselves in a situation where they know they're creators, they have a voice, they've got the ability to capture an imagination, they care about their editorial, they care about the difference that they're going to make, and they see a void. Stop putting yourself in not you guys, but stop putting yourself in a situation thinking that there's no value in that. The question is, how do you make that value happen? When I sat down to write this, I took a running start at COVID, I say to people, because I started in January thinking to myself, by June, this book will be out. I'm ready. Let's go. What I learned in the process was the fact that we've been on these social media platforms and working in social media over the last 12, 13 years. Mm-hmm. And if you actually had your screen time monitored from when it first started to now, you would realize, you could have maybe had another pet or like a child or another job. Like, we've invested a lot of time in building these same platforms that are getting such a bad rap around the world for privacy issues and price gouging. But the point is this: there's money to be made. There's audiences to be had. Let's stop complaining about these tools and start utilizing them properly. Don't assume that anything's ever going to be organic anymore. It's all a combination of being strategic, paid, and contribute to the culture, man. Like, stop putting yourself in a situation where you're just reactive and trying to get somebody to laugh at something. Contribute. Look, your last episode on sports, I had no interest in what your topic was, but I was interested because of your point of view on it, because I've never listened to a podcast from Dubai about Champion League sports, and just the effect it had not having it for you guys, and seeing that sort of almost remorseful way of looking at the fact that you need this in your life. I would have never got that perspective by just reading a blog, right?
Yeah, true.
Just quickly, I will say that the only reason I decided to do it was because I felt like there's just this phenomenal amount of creative energy being spent on platforms right now that, if just done the right way, we could all figure out how to make it work for us, right? You guys are a prime example. Your podcast will do extremely well on one, but then the other platform, you're like, why do we not, like, why are these, why is this audience not this audience? And now what we're going to see is the same way there were separate networks in television back in the day, where all sports, all this, all that. Now for podcasts, it's going to be the same thing, where you're going to go to one network and stop and say, no, these guys have the best sports talk sort of stuff. And I'm going to start and then you're going to have music. Spotify is already starting to introduce music into podcasting. That's a game changer because most people couldn't do music podcasts back in the day as a result. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm totally passionate about this stuff, but
it's amazing.
Go systematically, and I can tell you things based on what you want to chat about.
Yeah, no, because like for me, what's really cool, I'm really big on people's like journeys, right, and how you get to that point, and I think that's a big part of why we're doing this, and we don't really kind of specify or kind of want to stick on a specific topic. We just like to speak to people that kind of open up a different view or perspective of how they kind of guided themselves to where they are, right? So you've had a career. Prior to that, you were on breakfast television. How did you get to this space now? How did you decide that, listen, I want to start my own company? I think you have Think Start Incorporated, right? Which is, I'm assuming, kind of in the same space. What guided you to this place? Like, how did you get here?
I'll be very, very quick with it. Grew up immigrant parents from India in the 60s. Dad, government job, mom, minimum wage. I shouldn't say minimum wage, but like, workers' wage at the time, flower shop type thing. I went to university. I did everything according to plan. Went to university, did all that jazz. Woke up one morning and realized I am not doing anything I want to do with my life.
Yep.
And the worst part about that was it was pre-dot-com bubble. And so I was making more money than all of my friends at the time. And it was easy and I didn't have to worry about things. And I was literally living this like pseudo life where I was just like, why does this happiness not equal this happiness? Yep. And so woke up one morning, said, I got to try. Otherwise, I'm going to have to raise a family and they're going to know that I never really tried. And I literally started at the bottom. Shout out to OVO.
Nice.
But literally, honestly, I was answering phone calls for the Directors Guild of Ontario. I was creating their first spreadsheets because they didn't even know what to do with the data and information that they were getting.
Wow.
But what I did as a result was I took the immigrant mentality, my friends, and I went and I accelerated. I worked every media organization I could. I was freelancing. I was contributing. I was changing. I was taking diversity stuff. I was working and building new platforms. My most exciting time, at one point, I was working with 6 different media organizations and none of them knew.
Wow.
You're just floating around between them like, unbelievable.
Some people knew me as Mo. Some people knew me as Mohit. On radio, I was Mohit's Movies. On TV, I was full name Mohit Raj. I'm serious. One day, I remember I had woken up at 5 a.m. and I had done 5 different media outlets till 12 in the midnight. I had contributed. And I thought to myself, I'm sure I've signed a contract somewhere that prohibits me from doing it. But I had to, right?
You had to, yeah.
My worry was that I had no sponsor, no one who wanted to, no one was taking, no mentor, right?
Yeah.
There was no brown people on behind the scenes in television. They were all on air and they were all doing one thing. There was the one brown guy in sports. There was the one brown girl in weather. There was, one. And so we were never given the opportunity to produce and really make a difference. So I used that solid decade of my life and I said, I'm doing television. I'm having a great time. And gosh, I got to tell you guys, I was so lucky because I lived this duality where I can interview like a white Hollywood celebrity one second. And then the next day I'm dancing with Shah Rukh Khan, not dancing, but you know what I mean? And not many people outside of Canada, can understand the real value. I mean, inside of Canada can understand the real value of that, right? Because that's global. True. And so I'm extremely lucky and blessed, but then got recruited out of there to Cineplex to run digital, retail digital for them. And that was my grown-up job, right? I thought to myself, hey, now I'm grown up now. I don't need to go to these parties and do this lifestyle and work these red carpets and stuff. Now it's kids, it's family, it's no more chasing Jennifer Lawrence. And then I realized that's not what I wanted either, because what was happening was there was this thick layer of management in all of these media corporations in Canada that just refused to go away. They just had to protect. And remember, in Canada, you guys know it's Bell and Rogers, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
They own the media sphere. So finally I realized my real value is going to be through giving back based on my experiences. Because look, YouTubers 5 years ago, rock stars, right? Now, you don't want to be a YouTuber. You don't want to be called a YouTuber. The same thing's happening on multiple platforms. And so I figured if I've seen people go from beta tape to cloud, then my value is in the actual content side, which is, look, don't make the same mistakes. Stop wasting your time. Start to think about how content and culture and customer are connected and start working on it properly. And that's really the journey that got me to this place. But the beauty about it is, my friends, is I still feel like I'm on it. Like stopping to write a book isn't because I'm done. Stopping to write a book is because I want everybody to start doing more. And so, that's the deal.
But don't you see there's a common theme in your story? It's the passion for what you're doing. I think whether it's the beta or the VHS or the cloud, it comes down to the value content that you're putting out there, right?
Yeah and no, but I have to caution you about something. I never wanted to be the influencer myself. I never wanted to be the guy. I'm not a wannabe Gary Vee, watered down, brown version of something. I am literally the person that wants all of you guys to feel as confident as Gary Vee does. You know what I mean? I want everybody to feel as confident as the influencer that's selling fitness stuff, etc. But I want them to do it from a genuine, new and nice place, right? Like a proper place. Don't go follow that same person down the beach to take that selfie to tell you how you're going to be a millionaire. Take the right tools for you specifically that you got, create your content stack, which is just tools, the same way if you're a mechanic, and just focus on that rather than try to be everywhere and doing everything. So when you say passion, you have to understand, I was also passionate about not trying to fake the funk, as they say, and not try to be this guy that was like, hey, sign up right now. You can get all this stuff with
Definitely
me.
not.
And I really need to create things that are different.
And I think that's where we come from, is that I don't think we ever took this. I think you share this with me, is that we never took this path thinking that it's going to lead to becoming a social media influencer or a content creator for the sake of becoming rich. It's a learning experience. We're getting to talk to people such as yourselves that are experts in what they do. We would never get that opportunity if we did that without having this medium to do it. So it's sort of like a learning journey for us, at the same time sharing it with our friends and whoever wants to see it. If it goes viral, great, as long as people benefit from it. But our main objective was never to be Gary Vee, or because I don't see myself, maybe in 10 years, if this thing is still going and, we have enough credit behind our back to do that, credibility, then we can be out there. But for the time being, we're enjoying what we're doing as is. And if it organically grows, great.
Sure.
Do you see that being
Sorry,
do you see that being in line with what you're talking about, which is like, we're not out here to make money out of this. I'll be straight up with you. Seriously. It's more like a learning experience for us and sharing it with our community and the people that are willing to listen and, give their opinion on what we're saying.
Thought leadership is very important, whatever audience you have or you're looking to build. And you'll be surprised, because one of the things you're doing right now is, who knows what you're building towards? Right? Let me give you a very quick example. My dad is a 22-year AM radio broadcaster. Okay? And imagine AM radio recording on tapes back in the day. No Zoom, no lit up. None of this. No, not even that. Not even these mics. Cables into a little mixer, driving a tape to a radio station, making them play it, sounding all muffly, all that stuff. But committed to doing it every week, volunteered to do it, knowing the community needed it. Little bit of an ego shot, I'm sure, but still, part of what he wanted to do, and did it for the same reasons. Years later, he's being approached by websites now, and he's being approached by publishers who want to take the material that he, wrote on hand and scripted and paused and had to rewind or do again, and all of that hard work, they want now. So what I'm saying to you is that you might not necessarily be completely invested in what you think it is currently, but you'll be surprised. Like, you're documenting history right now that somebody's going to watch years from now just to remind themselves what it was like. You know what I mean? And
sure.
And then the flip side I also want to mention is, you guys probably have gems within the podcast that don't require people to listen to the full hour, right? Yeah. So you might want to start to siphon off that into what else can this mean? How else does this make us whole? What if we have a best of episode where it's all people with positive vibes? All of that stuff comes into how you want to get something out, right?
Yeah.
So while it might not mean something to you right now, one thing I will caution you about, if you don't mind me saying, don't ever feel the need to explain to somebody the intent of what you're doing. Yeah. Because you're not asking for anybody's permission to podcast. You're not asking for anybody's permission not to post. So why are you asking for anybody's validity and why you're doing something?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely we're not.
Yeah,
true.
Yeah, definitely we're not.
Like, be confident in why you're doing it. I found you guys, right?
Yeah.
I found you guys.
Exactly.
I'm not looking for you guys right now. I happen to find you guys. I was interested. What's going on with these guys? Right.
But the message I was trying to say is that we're not it's not a race for us on how many likes or subscribers we can get. Like I said, we're not against it. Nobody's going to be against that, because then it gets you excited to do more and more and more. Initially when we started, we were like, okay, we're going to do 3 episodes per week.
Yep.
That was our aim. And then realized like the amount of editing, the amount of work required. We have full-time jobs, we have families, we have, it's not an easy task. It's fun. I'd love to do this for a living and get paid for it. Sure. But that's not the reality yet. If it gets to that point, great. But in the meantime, we've scaled it down where we're like, okay, it's manageable. It doesn't interfere with our own personal life. And it gives us enough time to improve it and sharpen our skill set.
Yeah. That's a great point you made. And I emphasize that actually in the Audible book that I've done. So let me just very quickly mention that before. I know I talk a lot, but so the Rethinking Your Content book I did mostly for corporate and companies, right? So that it was more of a company thing. And the growth branding one is for individuals and influencers, because I saw this huge influencer crisis happening as a result of COVID. They weren't able to get those numbers. People weren't clicking on things. People aren't buying as much. There's no travel. So I decided to rush the second one out in audiobook format because nobody wants to actually read right now. Which is a really weird time to put out a book.
By the way, just on that, I'm enjoying reading right now. I'm going down a road. I'm reading like a book every week and a half, 2 weeks. I'm like full blown. I stopped watching TV, to be honest. Like I went a completely other route right now. So I'm the outlier.
I stand corrected.
I'm the exception. There you go.
I'm listening to more audiobooks. I'm not going to lie about it.
Sure. Yeah, audio is a big thing. And you know what's big is, let me give you an example for you guys. Smart speakers, right? Smart speakers are huge in homes right now. And if you can start to show that you understand that journey in the content process, people will be able to ask Alexa and Google Speaker or the Apple version for your podcast. Imagine what a Saturday morning listen would feel like we're not live right now, are we?
No,
we're not.
No.
Okay. Yeah, but imagine what, and that's one of the things I speak about with my clients and through the book as well, that you don't have to start to do what you're doing right now in the same way that you see it. You could all of a sudden be a destination podcast, or all of a sudden be one of your episodes is entirely dedicated to one conversation. I was on a podcast last week where every 5 minutes the guy was mentioning a sponsor. And I was laughing because, in a way, that's what I would have advised him if he could go get it. Yeah. But I was also annoyed by it because I couldn't finish a point. In fact, at one point, he was like, that point made me hungry. And when I get hungry,
That's brilliant. Well, good for him. He's monetizing. So yeah, he's monetizing. So actually, speaking of food, sorry, man. It's just something because Lay sent me a thing. I've been looking for poutine here in Dubai for a while. There's a couple of places that are all right. The main is pretty good. And you sent me this place, right? We're not going to say the name of it because we're not sponsored by them. But my problem is, and I don't know how you are, I'm a traditionalist. I want my poutine to be fries, gravy, and curds. These guys have all this like curry, Vietnamese, brisket.
They bastardized the poutine basically.
Like what? And I couldn't find one. Like I want the original poutine, and they're called like a poutine, something poutine, right? Is the name of the place or something like that?
Yeah.
So, what's up with that?
Just tell them don't put anything. Just give me gravy.
Man, I don't know what's wrong with these people.
Don't you feel like that? But don't you guys feel like that with anytime you go somewhere and you try to get like something authentic from another country, they always overdo it. Like even when you try to get Mexican food outside of Mexico, it's always like loaded with a bunch of stuff. You're just like, did they even have this much sour cream back in the day? I don't even know. Like,
that's a very good point.
Some guy with a sombrero comes like everything's over the top. Like, no, you don't need it.
Look at Indian food, man. Like they put buffets out. In India, there's no buffets. There's people starving on the streets. Why do you have to put? Imagine somebody said, "No, just give them everything."
Just do it. That's actually pretty good.
I think that there's a general overcompensation when it comes to world cuisine. And
sorry, we took you off track.
Canadian food, right? Canadian food is the worst. No one knows what it is. When you say poutine, they're just like, Or beaver tail. Have you got beaver tail?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
of course.
But I've never had beaver tail out here.
No.
What do they have? Smoked meat. But I like how smoked meat Canadian. Like that's
not.
I think Canadians like to think it's, especially our Quebec friends, that it's their thing.
There's one place that has a good poutine. The one where we have oysters.
It's really good.
Yeah,
nice combination. Oyster. See, that's such a Dubai thing. Imagine the best poutine.
Fish
place.
tacos.
Yeah, oysters
and oysters. Figure it out.
What is the one thing you can get in Dubai that you could never have gotten in Canada?
Ooh,
25-degree weather in December. That's what we get in Dubai.
Yeah.
You can't consume that. I'm talking consumption.
Consumption. I don't know, man.
Listen, Dubai has everything you can think of. Everything you can think of in terms of food. Every type of cuisine you can think of.
In terms of everything.
Yeah.
Look, Dubai over the last 15 years has, I don't know, transformed itself. Like it went on this crazy marketing campaign, established itself as, in the likes of like Tokyo and London. And then they just went full steam ahead on all services, it's literally everything's available here and it's done to the T, right? They don't half-ass things here, right? They do it all out. It's amazing.
And how is the podcasting world in Dubai?
Infancy, and that's why we're here.
Yeah.
We felt like there was no voice. There's no voice out here, and that's why we wanted to do, especially in the English language podcast. So
it's not only Dubai. It's
one small piece of advice.
Yeah.
What you guys are doing to be found is really important because I didn't know about the world, right? And so whatever you're doing in search, etc., continue to do it because to be the first to market is going to be your upper hand. And especially if you don't get in your own way, right? And when I say don't get in your own way, the same intensity, the same passion you're giving to it now when you're not making money, you have to think like that. Because otherwise you're just going to get every time you lose a sponsor, you're going to want to pack it in and get lost, right? So I just hope that you guys can capitalize on this wonderful opportunity.
The whole region is an interesting area to look at if you're a content marketer or somebody that wants to look at stats, for example. Like when we look at our main viewers, it's surprisingly coming from Canada and the US.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our viewers are outside of the region. When I say the region, it's not like just Dubai, it's the Middle East, North Africa region, the GCC, what we call it, the Gulf countries. Having said that, there's, one of the highest consuming countries in terms of YouTube hours is Saudi Arabia. They have huge numbers.
You might be in a situation. Are you able to access all the same information in the same way?
Yeah.
Are you able to?
Yeah, there's no limitations. There's no limitation.
I understand, and I don't know if this is right, but from what I understand, there is geofencing issues associated with how things can be tracked in different countries. And so, for example, I have a podcast on Spotify only about my book, right? That is just about. And there's certain countries I can't get any information about how it's being consumed. And I could never figure out if that's because of the country or if it's because of Spotify. Spotify doesn't say anything that they're not going to. So I'm assuming that there's got to be some government regulation associated with me getting data from another place. So I don't know if
potentially, but we haven't faced that across the audio platforms or through YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Generally, we're there and about all that information. Yeah, the information is all there. But it is quite interesting because podcasting is at its infancy here. And again, I'm going to ask you this question based, again, on your experience, on obviously your expertise. Because podcasting is just starting up, and I say just starting up, I'm talking both podcasters putting out content, and in the same regard, the consumption of podcasts is growing exponentially, but it's definitely in the starting stages here.
Yeah.
Right. What would you say, or how would you, take on or tackle such an opportunity, right? Because we recognize it's an opportunity, right? It's
yeah.
So
yeah, the smartest person right now is the one who niches down completely. If you can figure out a way to narrow your audience you're trying to capture, it's an entirely different game. What you shouldn't do is start a podcast thinking that you're going to start something that's similar to something you've heard. And instead, you think about the audience that you're trying to get first. Then you rewind it back to how you feed that audience, and then you focus all your time on that. What's not going to happen is you're not going to be Joe Rogan. You're not going to be, you might be for your market and your vertical, and that's great. That's what I'm pushing people towards.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. So think of it like BlackBerries and iPhones. When BlackBerries first came out, you could not convince anybody to go to an iPhone, right? Because they had the pad, etc.
And the BBM.
So the generation of podcasts were the BlackBerry, right? Because people heard about it, they could get them. They were accessible. They had neat features. It was usually iTunes, maybe Spotify, but iTunes was the big one. But then there was this dip, and the dip was because SIYL and all these well-produced podcasts changed the game and what people were listening for. And so you had two different types. You had Joe Rogan and Mark Maron, who were doing these long-form, everybody stop over and be celebrities thing. And then you had SIYL, well-produced, research, etc. And then there was this dip because nobody else knew how else to use it.
Yeah.
When smart speakers came around and when the Spotify came around, they started to realize that podcasts can be more than one thing. Like I have 4 podcasts right now that you've never heard of, not because you're not in my following me and stuff. It's because I designed them specifically for a purpose. So I've got a dad spotting one where it's all clean hip hop, and I don't need to put that on my socials and stuff. It just lives on my fatherhood platform. I've got Rethinking Your Content, which is all dedicated to the book and promoting the book. And that's not the Mohit Rajhans podcast. But when you look Mohit Rajhans up on Spotify, it'll come up as being another thing that I'm a part of. So what I'm starting to tell people like yourself, and you guys are ahead of the game, but I'm trying to tell people to even get started, is that like own your digital footprint in it, know what you're qualified to speak about and how you're going to do it, and do it from a place where you know that you're going to get that audience because you can get it. But don't make it about one thing. Because if you make it about one thing, including yourselves, then you're going to screw yourself, because one person hating you or one person hating the topic means I'm out.
Yeah, well, this is it. Like, I think that's probably one of the things that I think is kind of hindering us, right? Is that, again, as Laith was saying earlier, like in many ways, us doing this podcast is a selfish endeavor, in that it's a journey of learning for ourselves, right? So we're just bringing on a variety of different guests that are speaking about topics that we're interested in. Unfortunately, when it comes to targeting, or if I were to look at it from a business perspective, or from the ABCs of marketing or putting out content, we're not catering to one audience, right? So we'll have an episode about breathing, and then we'll have a financial guy come on, and then we'll have an entrepreneur in retail, right. And so we're kind of all over the place. Yep. So we're not
boxing.
Not yet. Yeah, but you have to remember, man. Like news organizations have people writing, and there's editorial departments, and you guys are a bootstrap team, etc. And the way I always tell people is you got to learn to earn, right? And what'll happen is a platform will give you an opportunity to start introducing sponsorship that you can have more control over, and you'll start doing in-show ads and stuff like that to see the value of connection and doing promos and stuff. The beauty about it is you've already taken care of the hard part, which is how do we functionally look like we know what we're doing? How do we sound like we know what we're doing? How do we shoot like we know what we're doing? That's the stuff that can't even get people off the couch to begin with, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't even know how, if a USB mic sounds properly, how to clear the filter off them. So you've already done the hard stuff. What it's exciting about the time for you guys now is that you'll be able to choose a platform that you really want to focus on and monetize. And it's going to be direct. There's digital ad exchanges that are going to start to happen. There's going to be servicing that you're going to start to see how to.
Oh, we lost your audio.
We lost your audio.
There you are.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Did you lose me?
We lost your audio
for a second. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry about that. What I was saying is that what's good about it is the running start that you're taking right now. The platforms are only increasing the opportunity for you to monetize off of it and find a different audience and start. So I believe that you guys have taken a running start in this phase of the podcast boom. But I have to warn you about one thing. The attention economy that we're in right now does not give people that same loyalty that they used to have. So, up until 2 years ago, if you subscribed to a podcast, it automatically downloaded on your phone when a new episode came out. That doesn't happen. And so you can't breed loyalty just based on you thinking being you is the only way that people will continue to come back. And I think the wide variety of guests that you guys have will end up being a part of that success. But the beauty about it too is that you guys are doing so much content that today it's one thing, it could mean something else a year from.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And that's what we said. We're like, let's see where we get to by the end of the year. We started in March, which we pulled
March we started to mess around with it.
Yeah.
And then May was when we finally
started producing it properly. I learned how to use, the different editing suites. We learned how to use what cameras to use. Like it was a journey, and it was a great journey. We, now looking back, it's like we've learned so much this year, just in terms of that setup that you're talking about. Is figuring out how can we produce a podcast from an audio and a video standpoint.
Right. And you guys should have international people. I mean, just saying like what you said about the time you spent in Canada, etc. There's nobody more international than people. You know what I mean? There's no. I think that's the other part about podcast people forget. This is a global medium. This isn't I'm local, you're local. It's not the fact that 3 people can have conversations like this, have something that's relevant. I mean, this is diversity. What diversity isn't putting a guy with a turban in your bank ad, right? Those days are gone.
Exactly.
This conversation, intelligent humans that are speaking about things that are affecting both the world and the industries that they're in. That's what it's all about, man.
True. Absolutely.
True. I can't believe you haven't been out to Dubai. I'm really struggling with that. You've never come out here.
I had a very, very good opportunity for a film festival that I was helping to curate once, and the festival didn't happen. So that's a lot of projects that have come to me from the GCC, as they say, have been very strong first conversations. And I don't know.
Fizzles.
And I'm open to it. I'm open to conversations about that. But now that I have friends there.
Well, this is it. Now at least you know a couple of guys out here, and it's a good time
I have friends and people that have performed out there and do amazing things. And I got to tell you, no one's ever said anything bad. So it's my bad that I haven't been.
You got to do it. Especially escape that winter. That's for sure. We're loving it now. Yeah.
Speaking of winter, I just found something I completely forgot about. The story about Winterlicious, that music festival in Toronto? You've obviously experienced.
Food festival.
Not the food festival. Winterlicious. Was it Winterlicious? Remember
it's a restaurant festival.
Yeah. Remember when SARS? Yeah, it's a food festival. Sorry, not a music festival. So do you know the beginning of Winterlicious? How it's all started?
Mm.
It was during SARS.
Okay.
So when SARS
to re-trigger the
so during SARS, the government or the city of Toronto, to help the businesses, small businesses, recover from the impact of the virus, they started a food festival where people are encouraged to go to restaurants.
Okay.
And help the small businesses.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, at a fixed price.
At a fixed price, exactly. And 16, 17 years later, that festival is still going on.
Yeah. Well,
till today.
Man, they're going to need more than a festival this time.
Do you think it's going to happen this year with all this craziness that's happening?
Man, guys, I'll be nothing but honest with you. it's been so tough to do any form of podcasting and media, etc., with people these days and not fall into this hole of how do we rebuild? How do these tensions get alleviated? How does America not ruin the world? Like all of these topics that end up circulating become good ideas until you realize that they're not actual solutions yet. Yeah. Vaccine backwards is basically how we got to work. And it's unfortunate, my kids play hockey, you know how important hockey is. The note came out that it's going to be extremely improbable for a season to happen this year, which as competent adults, you knew. But then when you realize what the parameter is to actually restart, then you start to realize, well, wait a minute, look at the domino effect. Who's not coming back? Who's never going to play again? How many parents aren't going to be able to afford things? Where will the economy be? Where will the priority be in this rebuild? Yeah. Will these facilities still exist? Will, one of the evil things I thought about is what about the countries that are trying to excel in sports? Did COVID hit them as much? Will we see an Olympic in 3 years where, one country will dominate because they didn't miss a beat?
Yeah, they just kept going. They didn't even care. They just kept training. I'm sure that's a very valid view. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised. Right?
Yeah, like Russia might take over at some point when it comes to hockey, and we might stop and say, "Oh, that's because that gap year they didn't close down the rinks."
There'll be an asterisk next to that that year.
Yeah, exactly. But see, we talk about like the crazy things and all the vibes, and just obviously we've been on Instagram seeing this whole thing on Adamson. Right, the barbecue place, right, out in Etobicoke. And I was gonna ask you because I know, that whole adage of like, there's no such thing as bad press, right? And I have to say, like, from where I'm sitting here in Dubai, the guy's just doing it just to get the name out, right? Like, that's how I feel because he's just acting like completely erratic and insane, and it's hard for me to imagine that a person that has a brain or a sharp enough brain to establish such a good business would be that crazy unless he's just all out now just trying to market the shit out of it.
It's difficult to detect what's the mood on the street is, right? Like I was in Toronto in August when phase 3 of the reopening was happening. Things were opening up, started looking good, moved from patio to indoors. And then I came back to Dubai and then things just started going downhill. The second wave started kicking in. What I'm struggling to understand, you probably have better insight on this. Restaurants, bars, gyms, their reputation is on the line. You have people that are, if you get infected in a restaurant, that restaurant you'll never go to ever again. It's done. Yeah. I feel like those are the people or those are the businesses that are going the extra mile to make sure everything is clean, everything is sanitized, your safety is number one. Like every restaurant I went to while I was in Toronto in August, they took my, the contact tracing that they're doing. My phone, my phone number, my name, limited seating. They practice the measures. You go to a shopping store, you go to any of these big marts, everybody's touching everything and nothing's being sanitized. Yet you go after the small business. I'm all for being smart, all for wearing, protecting myself and protecting others in a right, sensible way. But I think there's an overreaction happening, and it's hard to figure out what's the right approach.
Well, so 2 things, if you don't mind. First thing about the barbecue place, I hate the fact in Dubai, like the news of Toronto was around that. And you know what? It's a fault of our own. I was mad at CP24 and I shouldn't say CP2. I was mad at I shouldn't say that because
we'll bleep it out.
But there's so many stories that need to be told from what's happening in the city. There's family businesses that are getting decimated. There's people that are leaving without a peep. And we're spending 7-8 hours of coverage on a barbecue place that is defying the law. Yeah. And that was sad to be in the media to watch that sort of thing. And then also knowing that he believed his own hype, knowing he was getting world news, it really perpetuated. We're a very forgiving country, I think, the city. I think a lot of people will end up forgetting about how it all ended up happening. But when you talk about just the idea of even having to say overreaction, I think one of the things we forget often is the stories go from being about business to being extremely personal.
Yeah.
So you can trigger the worst emotion in somebody by just insinuating that somebody is overreacting to something, because there's lives on the line, right?
Absolutely.
And while you and I can come to a conclusion that something is safer than the other, or something might not make sense than the other, the point of the matter is it's so personal. True. If you live in a Yorkville condo that's $3 million, and you've got the view of the city and you can't book your elevator to leave your thing, that's an extremely different problem than me not being able to go to Walmart to get diapers.
True.
Right? So that's why I find it difficult to even engage too much in what's right and what's wrong, because every industry is affected, and also so many people have been affected in different ways. Like, for instance, if you and I were talking right now and you were the owner of a big restaurant chain, you would have an entirely different passion about what you're discussing. True. And that's when it comes down to, that's where it baffles me to think about how much time we've had to spend on trying to figure out what's going to happen versus really coming full circle with we have no clue.
True.
It's true.
It's very true. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm obviously, we had a couple of podcasts in the beginning about the measures and lockdown or not locking down, and what do you think is the right way to handle it. I definitely, I agree with the initial steps, right? When things were not clear, people trying to understand how to handle it. I think the balance is, I think we're experiencing that balance here, right? So everything here in Dubai is open. Masks are mandatory, indoor, outdoor. There's all sorts of like very stringent rules. And they've been able to reopen, and things are going well, and the numbers are staying balanced, right? It's not going out of control. But keep in mind that Dubai has a very young population. So we have because it's an expat-driven population. Most people are here to work, and then you leave when the time runs out. So the death rates are extremely low here, right? And then they have the luxury, because it's a smaller population, and they have the funds to set up the infrastructure in a phenomenal way to handle any sort of load. So you're not going to have any issues of ICU beds running out or whatever. So it's I guess the point that I'm just kind of, as I'm speaking, I'm kind of running through the cycle, and I'm saying maybe it's easy for us to say that this is the right way to handle it.
Yeah. But we don't know.
But we don't know.
We
right?
don't know.
Like it's. But all I know is that guy Adamson, dude. Like, I'm not feeling him.
He's a renegade.
I'm not going. I'm a huge fan of their food.
Yeah.
But I'm like completely. Come on, honestly, but I'm completely turned off.
It's so
completely
funny
turned
how
off.
people qualify their disdain towards it with the idea, I'm not saying the food's bad.
No, but I'm not going back. I'm not going back because of this. To be honest, like he totally lost. He lost my business. Not that it's going to
good barbecue. So. Some good barbecue.
And that's actually, you know what? It's interesting that you bring up that point, because I do want to mention that. I think a lot. Sorry, guys. Give me. Sorry about that. What I was going to say was, with reference to your brand, right, and that personal brand stuff that I was talking about. Don't do those foolish things during this time that completely alienate the audience that you've built over these years. I'm watching influencers just crumble with some of the stuff that they're putting out. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You built this equity. Stop doing anything. Go get the blogs you've worked on for the last 10 years. Publish a book. Put something out. Don't, start selling vitamins that you don't believe in, that it sounds so desperate, right? And I think that's one of the beauties about taking this little pause right now, is if you can stop and say, okay, what was I originally trying to do, right? How does it make sense and how I'm trying to do it? And use the fact that people like yourself are around and people are starting new projects, and start thinking about it that way. Start thinking about all the investment you've made so far and say, what else can I do with this stuff? How else can it be of value? And how else can I turn this around? Because people are going to be looking for new options. You don't want to go to Adamson next time? What else is out there? Exactly. And who's got that game on lock? You know what I mean? Who else is going to be that person that you're going to go to, that next fitness instructor that wasn't shaking her butt during COVID on Instagram, that you now has delegitimized herself?
Yeah.
Fitness instructors are a big, big part of what I'm trying to go after, and real estate agents as well, because I think there's a huge market for having a voice in that properly. Get out of the world of just TikTok videos where you're replicating dances and stuff. By the way, I love TikTok as a medium. I will tell you.
I was just about to ask you now, of all the mediums, which ones are you feeling? Like what? I know you mentioned in your book, like, don't feel the pressure to be on everything. Like, you know what I mean? But all of the ones that are available, for example, let's say in the context of a podcast like ourselves, what do you think is the best platform?
Well, the weird part about podcasts is that the current platforms are not going to be the only ones that you can have. Roku is coming out. Amazon's podcast network is starting to roll out. I won't be surprised if Shopify ends up doing a merchant one at some point. And if they do, they can credit me in this podcast for the idea. I think what's going to end up happening is exactly that, is big brands are going to start to create their own micro networks of audio and audio branding, because it's not going to just be straight talk, right? You're going to get the history of the brands. You're going to get VPs talking about product rollouts and stuff like that. So I think podcasting is going to start becoming network specific. So I'm excited about what else audio and audio branding in general is going to be. I'm also excited to see what Shopify is going to do to the online environment to get people to start to sell directly to customers. Now, you can do that in the Amazon system, and you can do that through WooCommerce and BigCommerce as well. But Shopify is just making it easy, sort of like WordPress was back in the day for making your blogs. With TikTok, my only concern with TikTok is that it's still being marred by being a music influencer site. And it's actually, I use it for tips. Like, I learned how to hack certain things and the best, ways to shoot certain things, etc. And real estate, I like to see how real estate agents are using it to do house tours, because nobody can go into houses these days. And how people are showing off, for example, that their safety precautions are being taken when they're in the midst of COVID through TikTok. I think it's an important medium to be a part of, outside of just flailing your hands and dancing. Doing the
So you're feeling TikTok. So you're a fan of TikTok. So you're feeling that you're not stressed about the whole US China debacle around that. Like, everyone's stressed out. Like,
let me make one use this. Mark it down on your time code. Okay, mark it down on your time. None of these platforms owe us anything. Okay. They're not designed for us to succeed. They didn't wake up and say, hey, how can the guy in Dubai and the guy in Toronto both use this to be successful? And you could tell that by the user functionality. It just doesn't make sense. How many times are you the third thing you're trying to do on one of these platforms? Be like, well, why do I have to go back to this to do that right? So I think we need to stop thinking that even though we're investing the time and we're building these platforms with them, that they owe us anything. We have to go back and start realizing that the wrench is the wrench. We got to use the wrench. The tool is the tool. We got to use the tool. And so while there's privacy issues and all that, if you've only invested in TikTok as your platform, that's your fault at this point. Because anyone who only invested in YouTube 5 years ago will tell you, I should have never invested all that time in just YouTube. Your content's relevant. It's going to hit. It's going to work. Right. So by learning the systems that you want to play in, you'll have no way of failing. Look at how many great things musicians are doing right now to circumvent being a part of a music label. They're not going to make music label money right away, but they're building their audiences and taking it in their own hands. And I love that aspect. And it's proof that every industry is going to have to do it. Movies are going to have to do it next too.
Well, even the gaming platforms now, the Xboxes and the PSs, they're having music concerts now on Fortnite. And
how crazy is that? What a brilliant idea!
Genius.
I'm so excited about what the VR AR potential is going to be for both Xbox and PS5. PS5, what are the we can do a whole. You know what? Maybe one day we'll do an episode on future technology, and we'll all bring in like articles about things that we've watched or saw on the internet and see if it's going to be game changers, because I get to look at some pretty cool stuff and I'm excited, but I also don't want to confuse the audience here with just start talking about stuff where he's like, wait a minute, is this guy talking about outer space now?
No, but go for it. We're here. Let's do it. Let's hear it.
I just look, there's a fascinating thing happening in the AR world right now where it's going to completely change marketing in that, even the next iteration of your phones, you're going to be a contributor to the augmented reality world as a content creator. So while we're sitting here trying to stitch these videos together, etc., it's going to be interesting to see how creators and mobile devices are going to be doing things even next level to help further brand stories, to help further continuity stories, to capture moments. Not everyone's going to be packed 35,000 people into a concert anymore. So how does the brand benefit from having all their signage around? And then how does the person interact with that with their mobile? That stuff fascinates me, man.
Yep.
How podcasts are going to be able to incorporate video without having to be full video podcasts is another one, right? YouTube is going to let you start to upload your audio first and then create the video around it and the graphics around it. Very important part of content creation tools. Wattpad's another fantastic company out of Canada that does all fan fiction. But guess what? It's not all fan fiction because they're using the data and they're giving it to film companies and TV companies. And those guys are stopping and saying, oh, now we're going to make a series about this. Because
that's it. They're pulling
another
out
tangent line.
Oh, man. Unbelievable.
There's another company based out of Toronto called Open Screenplay. And what they're doing is collaborative screenplays. So on one hand, they've got all the screenplays that are making money. They've got all the data about that. Then they've got writers from around the world typing away.
Just adding stuff to it, or writing for it. That's unbelievable.
Right, because it's global. Netflix now is going from country to country to get their projects dubbed in those native languages. You know what kind of an opportunity that creates for industries in different countries? It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, it opens up the floodgates.
I'm excited, man. Yeah. I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to work in personally. I'm not pretending to be a guru on all of it. I just feel like as we start to open our eyes a little bit more at how exciting it is, then we're going to make money and we're going to make moves. And that's the important part, right?
No.
Absolutely.
Now, before we close it down, I wanted to kind of give it a little bit of opportunity.
6'2", I know. I look a little shorter on camera. You're going to ask me. I'm 6'2", yeah.
6'2", your head is cut off. We can tell.
That's because of my hairline, too.
No, but I wanted to give a little bit of time for you to kind of tell us about what your company does. Maybe a little bit of background about that, and for people to know, just in case they want to hit you up, where they can reach you. It's your plug time. Yeah. It's your plug time. So,
thinkstart.ca is where you can find me. And it's basically what I try to boil it down to is I do content solutions. So while people might tell you that they can do strategy means a lot of different things to people. So media strategy in the agency world is all media buying, right? And media strategy to the PR world is how do I earn my media? So I drilled it back down to content as a solution. What are you trying to do? Is it culture or commerce you're trying to do first? And that's how I pick away at what the right approach will be. From there, I have my set of freelancers and consultants, depending on what you need. So if you need a copywriter to help you publish your blogs into a book, if you need design set done for podcasting and all the formats you need to do for podcast distribution, if you need media buying strategy done as a result, those are the solutions I try to work specifically on. What I don't do is I'm not a social media strategist. So because there's a ton of those people and they can teach you how to do things properly, I don't necessarily need that from you. If you want to start looking at how you're going to utilize platforms properly and future-proof your content and understand what the real value of your digital footprint is, that's where I come in. And I like to use real-life examples. I teach part-time too. I haven't taught in the last year, but at Humber College in Toronto. And it's fascinating because I get the real life experience from professionals, right? Because it's in continuing education, while I get to learn real time and teach in real time. And that's a very important part about who you get your information from. A lot of people like myself are trying to sell something specifically. And to be honest with you, I'm not even trying to sell my book. What I'm trying to do more so is broaden the conversation. Yes, I want people to come to me and we'll interact and do some business. But at the end of the day, it's all thought starters. And those thought starters I'll continually put out. If I have to put out 80-page books like this every year just to get people talking again and get excited about things, that's what it is for me. Because I think that'll drive business in the long run.
Amazing, man. I honestly, I think we can do another hour for sure. Yeah. Right. So we'll definitely look to have you on again. I love your energy. You're a wealth of knowledge. We really enjoyed it. Honestly, we really enjoyed it.
It's very nice to be both of you. I realize I came at you cold, and the worst part about coming at you cold, and this is a lesson to anybody. Pitch properly. Because I came at you, and the worst part about it is I would never advise, when I would look back at our email trail, I would never advise that approach. I must have just been at the end of my day saying, hey, I'm just going to email these guys. But I didn't give you any background on me. I didn't send anything about my book. I didn't send anything. And one of you two sent me back the note saying, hey, why don't you start by telling us who the hell you are?
But see, to be honest, like, I'm a salesman at heart, like at my core. So I love getting cold calls. Yeah. I truly enjoy it because I understand that feeling, that vibe, and I always make time for people. And I say that like that. This is a message out for everyone. Like, listen, guys, I know sometimes it sucks when people catch you off guard and trying to sell you something, but honestly, give people time because you never know when you're on the other end. And just how life is. Like it's like a pay it forward, right? So I always give people time, always give people opportunities. And like I said, now that we had you on, you know, I couldn't have asked for anything better. Look to have you on again. So it was really brilliant. Thank you so much, man.
My pleasure. 100%. Thank you guys. Stay safe. But I will tell you one small thing. You know, when you have a website or anything that says how to be a guest or whatever, you should isolate this clip about us talking about my blog approach and your willingness to accept, because that's the truth. I would rather watch this clip about it than try to read through a blog about how to be a guest on your show. So there you go. We did something for each other.
Love it. Amazing. Love it. Thank you so much. As usual, like, subscribe, catch us. We're going to put all of Mohit's details as well. And we look forward to having you guys back on again. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks.
We'll see you.
Thank you. Okay, guys, take care. Be safe. I can't wait to do it again. Take care.
Perfect. Cheers.